This slide is showing us simple columnar epithelium, and it's called this because the cells are in the shape of a column. There's round to oval nuclei, and many of the cells bear what's called the microvilli. The microvilli are an important part of the cell that you should know, and their function is that they increase the surface area of the membrane. So they increase the area where molecules can be absorbed. So in this example, we're looking at simple columnar epithelium that's in the small intestine. So found in this area would be nutrients, could be carbohydrates, lipids, or proteins. And those molecules are going to be absorbed. And then there's also secretion that happens. So that function, absorption and secretion, is just like simple cuboidal epithelium. Also found in simple columnar epithelium is mucus that's produced by goblet cells. It's kind of funny. They actually um, describe goblet cells because it appears like the goblet of a wine glass. So if this is your stem of the wine glass, this would be the goblet of the wine glass, and it secretes mucus. So the function of simple columnar epithelium is absorption and secretion of mucus, enzymes, other substances, and the ciliated type is going to propel mucus by ciliary action. So one important thing for you to know is that cilia is not the same thing as microvilli. You learned in chapter 3 that cilia were sort of like finger-like extensions that sweep molecules across the membrane. So they do not increase the surface area of the membrane. Instead, they are finger-like projections, almost like um, brooms that are sticking out, finger-like projections. And in the trachea, remember, they're constantly sweeping mucus out of the trachea. So they sweep these molecules across the surface. So a location for the simple columnar epithelium is the non-ciliated type, lines most of the digestive tract. And again, it has microvilli. Another location for this non-ciliated type would be in the gallbladder, excretory ducts of some glands. And then the cilia type is what you saw in the trachea. It's also lines the small bronchi, which are the tubes that branch off of the trachea, uterine tubes, and also some regions of the uterus. Our next slide is also going to be one layer thick, but it appears that it's many layers thick. So really, there's four types of epithelium to know that are simple and two that are stratified. So this first one, it's called pseudostratified columnar. And pseudo, that prefix means fake. So it appears that it's stratified, but it's really not. It's a single layer of cells, differing in heights, some not reaching the free surface, and the nuclei are at different levels. So some may bear cilia. And so when we look at the image on the right side, we can see goblet cells just like we saw in the previous slide. This one has cilia, which again is not the same as microvilli. This is the pseudostratified epithelial layer and then the basement layer. So we can kind of outline where a single cell would be. And there's only one nucleus per cell. And some are kind of fat at the top. That's not the best color. So let me switch to blue. Maybe that'll be a little easier. But essentially, it's really difficult to tell what would be one cell. The outline there is kind of difficult to see, but the blue outlines one single cell. So these cells are going to secrete substances, particularly mucus, and they propel mucus by ciliary action. So this is what we saw in the trachea with the cilia. So the ciliated variety lines the trachea, most of the upper respiratory tract. And then the non-ciliated type is in the male's sperm carrying ducts and ducts of large gland. So again, remember that even though they look like many layers, they're really not. They're really one layer that's actually present. So the next two that we're going to look at are stratified layers. They have many layers to them. It's called stratified squamous. So stratified means many layers. Notice that under the basement membrane is the connective tissue layer, and it's thick epithelium composed of several cell layers. The basal cells are cuboidal or columnar. Surface cells are flattened, squamous, and the surface cells are full of keratin and dead. So this would be in the esophagus. So for that reason, it is non-keratinized. So basically, non-keratinized, since it doesn't have that tough protein, it's found inside the body. So beginning with the oral cavity, extending down into part of the throat, into the esophagus, we have the non-keratinized type. Forms the esophagus, mouth, vagina. But the keratinized type is going to be outside the body. So it forms the epidermis of the skin, which is a dry epithelium. So again, remember, keratinized is outside the body, and non-keratinized is inside the body. Our last type of epithelium is what's called transitional epithelium. And transitional epithelium is also going to be many layers thick. And it literally transitions from stratified squamous to stratified cuboidal, depending on the degree of the organ stretch. So the big characteristic of transitional epithelium is that it stretches readily, it permits the storage of urine and a distended urinary organ. So it lines the ureters, bladder, part of the urethra. And it also has the special function of excretion, because obviously urine is going to be excreted from the urinary bladder into the urethra. So you have 6 total types of epithelium, 4 that are only one layer thick and 2 that are multiple layers thick.